I wanted to shoot a little video of the items that I took on the Fools Loop bikepacking trip that I took in February of 2023. This is one of the first times that I feel I didn't carry too much stuff. There might have been a couple items to drop, such as like the stove or the drone, but in essence, I felt that I packed pretty well for the trip. So here I have my hip pack with a 2-liter bladder, and this is a 10,000 watt USB battery, and that's a front headlight. And I think in that pocket over there is some hand sanitizer. And then on my cockpit in the handlebar, I had my GoPro there that I could quickly reach and pull out and shoot. Some tissues, which I didn't really use that much. And then I have some supplements. These are some sports legs, I think they call it there, to help your muscles maintain lactate or lactose acid or something. I'm not real sure, I don't remember. Some mangoes, some cranberries for breakfast. That's a protector for my computer, my Garmin. And then on the other feed pack, I had miscellaneous snacks, some flavored peanuts, some peanut bars, some of these fig bars from Costco, and some energy blocks. Didn't eat too many of the energy blocks. And then I had a Garmin InReach Messenger, which I subscribed to for the month, which I thought was a good idea just to have. You know, you're in cell service for a lot of it, but there are points where you don't have any cell service. So it was nice to send those messages to friends and family that we were okay, and they could see where we were. And then I had some bungees and some Volet straps, although these are Titan brand, and this one here broke right when I started the trip. I don't have that much experience with the Titan, with the Volet straps, but I'm a big fan of these self-attaching bungee cords. These things are great. I actually prefer these to the Titans. I found out about these on the Path Less Pedaled channel. I think that was the first thing I ever saw them do. Basically, they fold onto each other, and they're really, really efficient, and I really like them a lot. And I had 4. I put 2 on the saddlebag, and then the other one and one of the Volet straps held my tent stakes for my Big Agnes tent to the frame of the bike, the down tube. And let's see, up here I had 2 pair of gloves. I had long sleeves and short sleeves. I wore both, and maybe 2 days for each of them. And then I had these 2 Ortlieb 4-liter saddle bags, or frame fork bags, I guess they're called. I believe they're 4 liters each. And these were actually there for extra capacity. The few times I've bike packed, I find that the way I have everything packed, I have no room for extra items. So if I want to buy a sandwich or a beer, I have nowhere to put it other than strapping it to the saddlebag. And sometimes the saddlebag has enough on it as it is. So these were put in there more for excess material. If we did want to buy a beer or get a sandwich somewhere, or supplies, I had a place to put them. So, but I did put my, my power bank in. There's another 10,000 milliamp battery, a quick charger, some miscellaneous cords, and then the water filter system. It's the 2-liter Sea to Summit, I believe it is. No Hydro Pack. And I adapted that for my Mini. And I didn't bring the plunger, which I really wish I did, because there was a lot of rain before we got there, and the water was super muddy, and the filter clogged almost immediately. So we got to a point where we just didn't use it. We would just stop and, at restaurants and stuff and get refills. And like I said, we have 4 liters. We had no problem with water, it being February, and there was a lot of water on the trip this time, a lot of water crossings. So rain jacket, which I tied pretty much to the outside of the saddlebag, or I stuffed in one of these fork bags. And then the other fork bag had one of my tool kits in it. Everything that you see here went into this bag here. And let's see, I had a spare shifting cable, patch kit, that's a lighter, spare brake pads. Of course, I brought the wrong kind. I had one good one for my Shimano brakes, but these are for SRAM. I brought those by accident, not paying attention. Again, double check everything. Sealant, which I don't think I would bring extra in hindsight, again, just because I put so much fluid in these tires that if there was a leak and it didn't patch, I was going to have to put a tube in it. So I don't think I would bring the fluid again. Some powdered Gatorade that I would add to my water as needed. It's cheaper than buying it on the road. And this is a Tubolito I bought specifically for the trip at the last minute, mountain bike. And then I have some from bikepacking.com suggestions. I have some regular Allens, because on those multi-tools, it's really hard. They're not very long, so you can't really get the Allen in some places without it being a hassle. And then this is a chain quick link remover. And then let's see, and this was my other toolkit, which I go on I short day rides mountain biking. This basically has another tube in it, some bacon strip, zip ties, toe peak multi-tool with tire levers on it. I really like that particular multi-tool. And that's a reamer, I think, with some more bacon strips. And this is just some string thread I had laying around. I tossed it in there because I had a spot for it. So that's more or less the tools and the 2 fork bags. This is the front pouch that attaches to the Salsa cradle, which I ran, which I'm really a big fan of. This is the first generation one. I don't know if there's a second. I think there's a second generation where they switched to volet straps. This one, I have the original straps on there, but I really like this because it's solid. It doesn't bounce around, and it also gives me space, especially when I have a drop bar on there, because I hate losing that space on the handlebar. And let's see, that goes with what I would attach to that is this dry bag that came with it. And in here are 2 sleeping bags, specifically a summer sleeping bag. It's a low budget Amazon one, but it had good reviews on YouTube. I don't know how many seasons the other sleeping bag is, but it was my first sleeping bag I bought for bike touring about 5 years ago. So 2 sleeping bags, air mattress, and tent are in there. I basically stuffed the tent in there to make it fit, and sleeping bag, so it's like free form in there. And then I brought the bag in case I needed to in case it rained, then I needed to put the tent in the bag that it came with. So let's see what else. So the pouch had basically the drone in it, the drone control there in the gray fabric. Filters are in the red bag there, an extra battery, and that pouch goes with, like I said, attaches through this system here. The Garmin was in the cockpit, Garmin Explorer 2 computer. And then I wore this GoPro with a chesty. And then the drone itself, the mini drone, was in the tail fin bag there that was attached to the frame. I carried 2 of those 1 liter bottles on the down tube. And then in terms of clothing, I have this inexpensive hoodie, kind of like a sun shirt. That was really helpful to have a hood on the cold days to stop the wind. And then I have a buff, which I didn't really wear that much because, one, this had a high neckline, and then the jacket that I'll show you in a moment had a high neckline. So let's see, I had 2 pair of wool socks. I pretty much just wore the 1 pair for the whole trip, and then I think the last day I put this pair on because these socks were wet from our last day when we went through the water crossing. Short sleeve wool shirt, that's a very thin shirt. I wore that one day over my long sleeve. And then I have 2 pair of long johns, a Capeline by Patagonia, and then this is an inexpensive like spandex kind from Amazon. And then for my tops, I have an REI wool, thin layer merino wool top, and then this is a thicker layer merino wool. And on the coldest night, I just wore those 2 pair of long johns and then these 2 tops. Didn't wear socks with my 2 sleeping bags, and I was fine. I also brought a pair of long pants. These are from Eddie Bauer. These are they're called First Ascent. And I have a couple pair of these. I use them for traveling because they're really thin. They fold into, if you want to do like one carry-on on an airplane, they really fold down really small, a couple pair of them. So I wore that one of the colder days, I think. Worked great. That's a rubber band to keep it out of my chain. And then I have a knit cap and from souvenir from Amsterdam, a pair of briefs, 1 chamois from 11 Pine, which is Doozer's recommended company, and they're shorts. So I wore that. So that was what I had 1 pair of that. All these clothes that you see here pretty much went in the saddle bag. Like I said, the raincoat was probably strapped to the outside sometimes. And then I have some TP and a headlamp that went in there. And this is the fuel, and then the stove actually went into the Stanley boiling cup, which is pretty standard procedure for everyone, I believe. Some toiletries, and then some rags that I used to wipe my feet when they got wet. That was on the outside of the bag. So that I could wipe my wet feet with the water crossings, a foldable bowl. And I think I brought 3 meals, 3 freeze-dried meals. We ate 2. My co-writer, Dave, he had the oatmeal for breakfast, and he carried a lunch, which was burritos and peanut butter and Nutella. So he carried that stuff. We both had a set of tools and then a pair of shoes. These are, I forget what they're called, but they were recommended by bikepacking.com as being a shoe that you could ride in and also just wear as a single pair of shoes. And there's the bike I carried it on, my Giant. It's a 2014 Giant Trance. Pretty much stock except for the wheels. I replaced it with tubeless rims. And I was running the Mazda, the Vittorio Mazda, which were very good tires for this trip. I would recommend them. Not that I don't know much about tires, but I didn't have any problems with them. I didn't get stuck in any sand. And then I have a Rock Bros thing. I forget I think I just had more snacks up here. Yeah, I just had more nut bar and maybe some supplements were up there, but that's all I had up there. Mount for the Garmin. The bike does have a dropper post, but I had a few inches, but the problem is when you use the dropper post, the tire just hits the bottom of the bag, so it kind of defeats the purpose. Bike ran really well, and it was a really outstanding trip. For those of you who made it this far in the video, I'm going to add some final thoughts about my experience on the ride and the distances we covered per day. After about 9 miles of road riding, we started our off-road section at Pima Dynamite Trailhead, which I feel was a good option as it makes the first day to Sheep Bridge a more manageable 52 miles. If you camp at Sheep Bridge, the best place to pitch a tent is the area under the bridge, as that looked to be the most sandy and the rest of it is pretty rocky. Although we didn't check it out, there is supposedly a primitive campground across the river. On day 2, there was a lot of walking of the bike. The road conditions, rocks, baby heads, etc., and the weight of the bikes made it difficult, if not impossible, to ride, let alone climb and ride. There is a pretty intense climb immediately after leaving Sheep Bridge to get you used to what lies ahead. We planned on making it to the Cordis Junction area at about 40 miles for that day. My biggest piece of advice for this day is to start your ride early. We didn't get moving till 10:30, and if we had left by 8, we would have beat the rain and not gotten stuck. I can't stress enough how bad it would have been for us if that horse trailer didn't come along and rescue us. Because of the winter storm, we stayed an extra day in Cordis Junction to regroup. Since we weren't doing the northern loop that starts and ends at Big Bug Trailhead, our route on this day was Cordis Junction to Black Canyon City, and it's very doable by staying on trail. However, you have multiple options to adjust the route on the fly, as we did, because the route crosses Antelope Creek Road and Bumblebee Road. Multiple times you can simply get off the trail and ride the gravel road to make up some time. In hindsight, I wish we had stayed on the trail more, but because of the previous day's adventure and the possibility of more bad weather, we were a bit jaded and concerned we might get caught in another bad situation, so we booked a motel in Black Canyon City. The odd thing was the motel proprietor at Black Canyon Motel insisted that we be there by 5:30 p.m. for some reason. This affected our trail riding decisions, and we overcompensated and got to town at 3:30 by skipping sections of the route, which I wish we had ridden. Day 4 was supposed to be our easiest at 28 miles and 2,800 feet, but it was a bit more challenging because it was mostly all single track. On that day, we also had a late start by having a hearty breakfast at the Rock Springs Cafe. We decided to end our day outside Anthem while there was still some daylight, and we basically only had a ride to the car the next day. The next morning, we decided to abandon the official route and try a shortcut using Google Maps, and that wasn't the best plan, as we had to navigate around water crossings and encounter unrideable sand roads for the first time. After breakfast at Denny's, we rode an unenjoyable 20-ish road miles back to the car for the ride to Los Angeles.